Hello there, and welcome to the Novocastrian live with Caleb Lamont. Yes, we're joined by Caleb Lamont today. How you doing, Caleb?
Doing good.
Yeah. Um, yes, I'd just like to say thank you to everybody who has subbed to my channel lately. It's a big help. Also, got my first paid subscribers as well, which is immensely helpful. And yes, um, if you want to become a paid subscriber, that will really help me immensely to keep the channel going. If you like what you see, we have lots more on the way. I have just released an article on my Substack. Could you mute me, bro? Sorry, I can hear my cheers, cheers. Yes, I just released an article on my Substack, uh, uh, and it goes into it puts into text form Sean Hross's work on Keir Starmer. Uh, I'm really happy to put out this work, but because of this work that I've been working on over the past year, I have a whole host of articles as well that will actually incorporate the original essay, so the original article with Sean Ross's work, but it expands upon it and take and it will show you the journey that I've been on researching Keir Starmer in general, Fabian society, uh, and Keir Starmer's cohorts. Um, so there are a lot, as you can see, we are on our third podcast, so that there's lots of things happening on this channel, and we're very excited about it. Yes, but also I got to rereading because I realized I did actually read Caleb's article, the Beaumont's article, but it just been a while since I've read it, and I've been rereading it, and it 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 does what I did to Sean Ross's work, because a lot of people think that Commons Beaumont's work isn't very accessible, that he has a particular way of writing, that if you don't know what he's talking about, you basically need an encyclopedia or Wikipedia open so you can check out some of these things. But then even then, you still have to do a lot of deeper dives to get to what he's really talking about. So Caleb helps his article. I will put it in the comments of this, in the description of this video, so people can have a read of that. That'll be great. And also check out the rest of Caleb's stuff on helsinglibrary.com when you get a chance. All right, Caleb, over to you.
Yeah, Commons Beaumont is for me personally, it was difficult to read when just getting into it. My recommendation would be um, to just get through the book, make it from cover to cover, regardless of whether you understand it or not, because then go back a second time and you know, for some books when you're having a trouble just like digesting it as you go, sometimes the best strategy is not to sit there and um, try to digest it the first time through. Sometimes it's better, I think, to just go through it and just sort of speed read through it, regardless of whether you're understanding it or not. And then when you go back the second time, it'll actually be a lot better, as opposed to sitting there and sitting on the same couple pages until you understand it and then moving on to the next couple pages. You'll just be bogged down so much. that's the way it was for me. Because when I went back the second time, I already had a pretty good idea of what the flow of the whole book was, and then everything, all the details and all of the particulars were really making a lot more sense. So it's probably a good habit to try. Give it a shot of like just speed reading a book first, and then going back and really reading it in detail the second time. I was speed reading your uh, Starmer article yesterday. I was so freaking busy yesterday. I didn't have a whole lot of time, but I went and started speed reading through your article, and um, I like it because, for one, I did watch all of the Starmer series by Hross, but I forgot a lot of it, and also a lot of the things that he mentioned that were just like in passing. You're bringing out in your article and actually like bringing it uh, to life, so to speak, because like some of these connections that he just mentioned, who whose ancestors were, uh, you know, converging, and how different Swiss ancestors ended up going to different places, in other countries, and um, I like that picture. Where did you find that picture of where it's like all of these little parachutes coming down with the Swiss cross? That was pretty cool.
Well, I mean, people give a lot of flack to AI, but as a sort of from a Jason Reza Georgiani point of view, I embrace it only insofar as it can help us create our vision and not a vision that we hand over to some machine. No, we get it to implement our. That's what these things are here to do. These things are tools, and that's what I see them as. You can use a gun to defend yourself, but you can also use it to destroy. You can use a hammer to build things, but you can also use it to destroy. And you can also um, anyway. So enough the analogies. But yes, a lot of those pictures that I use that don't have captions because I just left them to speak for themselves. Really, people. I'm pretty sure people could look at them, and I thought people would. I thought they'd see them and go, "That's AI." I don't need anyone to tell me that it's AI. But yes, I found it immensely helpful, and these things are surprisingly intuitive. Um, if you don't give the right commands, it can miss things out, and sometimes it might take you a few goes to get it right. Um, but it helped. I'd throw it some ideas and some of the things it would come out with. I'm pretty sure I've been training this AI accidentally because a lot of the things I would put in there, they would it would produce. Like, say, I wanted a politician in a bath full of blood in the middle of Parliament. So it would give me like ten copies, and then all of a sudden it was like, no, 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 we can't do any more of these for you. I'm sorry. The computer says no. I know what. Oh, that's right. It figured out that I was trying to do something with those pictures. So it did. Yeah, I think anyone who goes and tries to put in those same commands now will get the same. It will recognize that. Oh, no, no, I shouldn't actually be generating these pictures for this guy. he's 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 finding a way around my parameters to present a certain picture about politicians. But yes, AI. That's where I got it from. Um, but yeah, that's anyway. You can go ahead. Sorry, I went on a bit there.
Just tell the computer, no, man, I'm an Eminem fan. I'm trying to make it like the rap video. God, yeah. Um, I haven't played around with it a whole lot. I've never had a whole lot of luck with it. But they're getting They're getting a lot more advanced now. Might have another go with it.
Yeah, yeah. As I say, try to give it as many specifics as possible, and even the art style. If you wanted like a classical painting, which I went for all the time, I felt like the style fit, especially considering we were looking at the ancestors of Starmer and looking at the his connections to uh, say gamekeepers, his long ancestry in in the gamekeepers for lords and their land and their castles. I felt, and also tying that into Swiss mercenaries. For instance, just to go into it, what Caleb's talking about is, uh, some of this stuff I didn't even figure out until later on either. So I'm telling you now, like, I found this out and then spawned the essay. No, this is stuff I found out when writing the article. I found out that Keir Starmer, what his ancestry was linked back to generations of gamekeeping, but also that hunting is almost like a religion in Switzerland. And I thought that would be perfect way to integrate your sentries, your sleeper cells, to embed them, is just have them work because in the when the Swiss mercenaries would fight for the British Army, particularly in the Napoleon Wars, they would send them out to their colonies and they would give them land. And sometimes they would allow them to become governor and things like that. They would give them really high positions. Fitting because some of these Swiss mercenaries, a lot of them actually, when you look at it, were of Swiss nobility. They were in the higher rungs. So, but in England, it's a lot harder to just give some guy from Switzerland some land and then just pawn him off as if he was always here. Oh, we've got von Hamburg here, von Huguenot here, who's now our now he's the guy who owns the castle. People are going to it's going to get people's attention. Um, but yes, so I found this out about these. So I found this out about Keir Starmer and uh, just linking this whole idea of that hunting is a religion in Switzerland, and it is. I mean, they even have sermons in their churches about how it's a holy act to go hunting. And I mean, who am I to say no? I think it's certainly a novel idea. I don't think you'd ever hear that sermon in a English Christian church. I think you'd have a lot of sermons about the one world, uh, one world, one love, accepting everyone's sexuality, everyone's different personalities, even headmates and all the rest of that. All those terrible things that are now coming to bear. But yes, so we so I just thought it was an excellent. It would be an excellent idea was to have them work on the Lord's land, have them look after them, make sure already. If anyone asks any questions, well, he fought in the war. He fought for our country. If all else fails, and if this guy makes a total, this mercenary who's being brought into England, he's situated here, and let's say he's a murderous bastard, and he just has no control. It can all be explained. Well, he's the trauma during war. He's he's he fought for us, and he's one of us. So yeah, he's a Swiss mercenary, but now we've adopted him now. But I mean, even if you wanted to keep it completely secret, it's a great way of doing that as well, hiding behind the cloak of a lord. So and also yeah,
But they changed names. They modified their names a little bit to be more blended in with the local population.
Yes, Starmer is comes from Old English as well. I mean, but Old English is tied into Old German. So, and Old German is Swiss German too. A lot of Swiss German is Old German. So it's funny, they didn't really need to do much, and they left a lot of clues. I mean, another Swiss name from that Swiss mercenaries, prominent Swiss mercenaries, successful Swiss mercenaries were named was Adolphus, and I think it was um, Starmer's great grandfather, who's called Adolphus, and also his great uncle was called Adolphus as well. And Adolphus means wolf. I mean, Keir Starmer's a Fabian, and the coat of arms of the Fabian Society is wolves in sheep's clothing. I mean, these little connections come up. Um, I mean, I could go on from here, unless you got any more questions, or you just want me to keep going.
Yeah, so the Fabians have got to be connected in with the Order of the Garter as well, somehow, I would imagine, because it goes along with the same agenda of spreading out the power into a horizontal uh, fashion in which the nobility can each have their own basically uh, shared power, distributed power amongst the nobility. Um, Basically, what I'm talking about is the concept that Sean explains between the vertical rule and the horizontal rule, and how the old world order of the um, Holy Roman Empire essentially was a vertical rule. You had the Pope, you had the Holy Roman Emperor, you had the king or queen of each country, and it was just a very narrow um, scope of power in terms of it being limited to just one person or just a small handful of people. But the idea, though, is that there's a lot of other nobility in a vertical rule system. There's still a lot of bloodline nobility people that don't have the power that they believe they deserve by virtue of being bloodline nobility. So, uh, in recent centuries, events have happened which basically destroyed most of the structure of the old vertical rule and replaced it with the horizontal rule, meaning that just about all of the nobility members are able to grab power, you know, um, because in the old world order, there was no power for you to grab. You can be bloodline nobility all day, um, but there was nothing for you in terms of power. It was all for the king, it was all for the pope, or it was all for the emperor. But when they replaced it with the horizontal, then as long as you're bloodline nobility, you can get to work grabbing more power for yourself. That's the whole concept. But they took out the Tsar of Russia. They took out the monarchy in France through the multiple, not just the one French Revolution, but there were actually revolutions after the French Revolution that occurred in France, even up to recent history, like in the last 100 years, I think. Um, Happened again. The monarchy kind of came back in France a little bit, and then it got replaced again. But um, What happens though through the course of the centuries is you see that they weren't able to completely erase the vertical rule off of the face of the earth. Um, so they invented the constitutional monarchies, where basically they let the royal family live instead of slaughtering them wholesale. But they're basically ornaments now, you know, and they have to maintain a membership within the uh, secret society that was made for them to exist within the confines of the Order of the Garter. Do you think? Do you think the Queen or do you think the royal family wants to be members of the Order of the Garter or the Order of Bath, or is that just like uh
Or the order of the thistle.
right? I don't necessarily think it's a matter of they want to have that order. Um, it's more of like a compromise, as Sean Ross says. It's like um, this is the limited confines of how we'll let you have your way because you have to negotiate with us now. Now, like I said, and the old world order, the popes, the kings, the queens, the emperors, they didn't have to negotiate with anybody as far as uh, doing what they wanted to do. They didn't have to answer to uh, a whole lot of the other nobility. You know, it was vertical. They called the shots. But so the constitutional monarchy is like you don't get to call the shots anymore. We all are grabbing power, and there has to be basically, you know, all the concepts of democracy and everything, and parliamentary procedure, and how it's going to be a group decision and all this kind of thing. That's the horizontal. That's where everything's been trending. So um, the concept of Hitler was a British agent. Um, you know, it's kind of true in terms of the fact that he ended up going with the agenda of the Order of the Garter, which is to maintain the horizontal. It's the Order of the Garter is basically a way to deal with the remnants of the old world order, in a way that will benefit the new world order, the horizontal. So, old world order is vertical, and the new world order is horizontal. So, uh, the Order of the Garter's job is to deal with the old remnants of the old world order, the vertical, in favor of the horizontal new world order. So, what Sean explains in his series, and his other series on World War II, is that um, Hitler was able to rise to power because he was able to gain the favor of the old world order nobility of Germany that wanted to bring back the old world order vertical rule. But he betrayed all of those guys and brought in the Templars as his SS Templars. So the government in Germany became a Templar government, a Swiss government, essentially. Uh, and their agenda is the horizontal. That is fully what their agenda is to um, bring things into the horizontal system. And so essentially, you have the Order of the Garter in England to negotiate with the remnants of England's old vertical rule, which is the royal family. and in Germany, it was basically the SS Templars dealing with the old vertical rule remnants, which that the plot to kill Hitler that they made a movie about. That was the people who originally helped Hitler come to power because they believed he was going to help them bring back a vertical rule system, a German emperor, and all that kind of thing. But he changed his agenda right out from under everybody midway through, and the Night of the Long Knives happened and basically handed everything over to the New World Order, uh, horizontal rule. So I think there's got to be a connection between the Fabian Society and the Order of the Garter. Yeah.
I don't know too much about that. That is a very good question. As a very, what connection is there between the Fabian Society and the Order of the Garter? Um, definitely some research needs to be done there. I think, um, but very important actually to look into that. In fact, I'm going to write that point down, just because I think that is something else I'll have to research for these next articles coming out as well. See if I can link these up because it talks about Charles. I mean, as much as that article that I put out this week is about Keir Starmer, it's also about the king, so called. And yes, I will definitely look into that a bit more. Now, we were talking about, I mean, one of the things that, I mean, you go back to their early reports and you look at the artwork that's on there done by Walter Crane. One of the earliest ones that they put out was three angels, and the three angels had sachets on, and each sachet had a word from the French motto "Égalité, Liberté, Fraternité," which is the slogan of the French Revolution. You look into Starmer's background. Sorry, you look into the astrology of Starmer, and I'm surprised that Sean Hross didn't pick up on this. I mean, it would have been brilliant, but lucky for me, I guess, that he didn't, because it was there for me to showcase, and showcase it. I did. I think I mentioned it like at least 4 times because it just kept coming up. You know, it's just too perfect. I mean, the guy is born on the day of the day the September massacre started, which was a slaughter of the Catholic bishops in Paris during the French Revolution, 2nd of September. I mean, they must have been licking their lips, right? They must have thought, "Wow, this guy's the Messiah. He's the Moshiach." He's like he's the coming. He's the Antichrist we've been looking for. Not that these guys believe in the Antichrist or whatever, but yeah, I'm sure it was akin to that. And as I say in the article, I bet it raised some eyebrows and some knowing grins. Um, so then the quick question. I mean, it was this question was posed for Jimmy Savile. His dates line up with some rather strange events and almost seemed to be cool. Wasn't his birthday on Halloween, Jimmy Savile? I think something like that, something ridiculous like that, like, or the start of the Halloween season. More in ancient times, it was more the start of it. I can't remember exactly right now, but and it was stipulated in that documentary called Was Jimmy Savile a Wizard? I think it's called. Um, it was stipulated. Was this all planned? Was his birthday planned around that time? Was it a I mean, I'm not saying that this is even possible. All I'm suggesting is that these people who believe in these things, did they try and create something, an entity, but something that isn't of this world, something that's demonic, by trying to get someone born on on Halloween in a particular year, and with certain occult forces at play. And that it kind of made me think of Starmer. Now, I don't really think it's the case, but it is quite perfect the way it lines up, and how studious that supposedly, if you believe the newspapers, how studious this chap was when he was growing up. Apparently, he used to devour the Guardian when he was growing up. So I mean, so all too perfect, really, how things lined up for them. Maybe he was schooled. Maybe he was recruited at an early age. We don't know. We know there's some very strange photographs out of him out there. One in particular of him at university, which I call that his initiation photo. With certain Gnostic themes at play. But before we get into that, I'm sure we'll get around to that at some point. But anyway, let's have a look at the messages on the chat. Russ Viking is here with us. Hi Russ, I just recently read some of your work. Great stuff. It actually, it inspired me to just to press the publish button on my article finally, and just like, you know what? If there's any mistakes, I can edit them later. Screw it. So thanks for that, Russ. Andy says hello to us both. He says, let's talk Fabians. Absolutely. That's I didn't expect to. I mean, I was just before this podcast, I was reading Caleb's article, expecting to get into Commons Beaumont and everything, but now here we are. I had a feeling we'd get onto this article. That's cool. So Caleb, is the scattering of these groups horizontally just to confuse the masses and give illegitimate lines of royals to take control of these new groups? They are, and he suggests, I'm not sure if this is a question or not, but he says they are acculturated to use the tools of power available to them, i.e. Order the Garter. Yes, and I'll talk about the rest of his comments in a bit. What do you think of that, Caleb?
I don't think that that's the only thing going on. I mean, they never, because the horizontal rule, they also, part of the horizontal rule and the implementation of it was to give the general public the notion that it had anything to do with anything outside of the nobility, especially today, where you think that you're going to the voting booth and making a difference. They hid the fact that the horizontal rule is still, I mean, they you we can sit here and believe that um the old world order of having all of the power in the hands of one person is an evil concept or a bad concept, and that um each person should have a choice and all this kind of thing. But don't let that fool you into believing that the historically the people who toppled the old world order were doing it for moral reasons or some sort of highfalutin noble reason of like, well, that's just wrong and we should change it to make it a better system. No. So, I mean, we can look at the old world order with the popes and the kings and the emperors and say, oh, well, who does this guy think he is that thinks he's superior to everybody else? And is the only person who deserves to have any power. But don't forget that the people who made the horizontal system had the same um, superiority complex because they're the nobility bloodlines, right? So they didn't really intend to let go of their superiority complex when it came to implementing the horizontal rule. Um, so it's it is deceptive, as you're saying. It does confuse people because it seems like spreading things out in a horizontal fashion more as far as the decision making is a good thing, but really, um, they have secret societies, which we also got to remember, why why do the Freemasons call each other brothers? You know, today if you join a Masonic lodge in your local town, um, and you end up calling everybody their brother, yeah, it doesn't really mean that you're literally their brother, like blood related or anything. But where do you think the word comes from? Why do you think it started being a part of the terminology of Freemasonry? Because originally they were brothers. They actually were brothers, or very uh, related to each other. They had their own nobility bloodlines and everything, so they still did consider themselves of noble blood and all this, and there's even Templar beliefs where they believe they literally descend from Mary Magdalene and all this kind of thing. So, as far as they're concerned, they literally have holy blood coursing through their veins and all this kind of thing. So, um, yeah, they did pull off a deception down the line to give the impression that their horizontal system was intended to be um, a thing for all people, but all of their slogans, like the one you mentioned, uh, liberty, equality, fraternity, the last word there, fraternity, comes from the word frater, meaning brother. So it actually means among the brothers or among the brotherhood of the nobility. Yeah, they didn't have this they didn't have this generalized conception of brotherhood back originally, but they sold it as that, as like brotherhood is just this concept that we should all embrace or whatever. But originally they understood amongst themselves what brotherhood meant is that they were actually related to each other, and they were of a superior bloodline, or they thought they had the superiority complex. Like they they literally thought they were. Um, it's not because they disagreed with the concept that one emperor or one pope or um, one king, was superior to everybody else. It's that um, they also had the same superiority complex. So they believed that, they had every much of a right to have power just like the king, So it's kind of twisted, It's not like so yeah, we have been pretty much confused about how the thought process of these things works, um, because we think it was all just like uh, a gradual process of just people realizing that we should all have rights as human beings and all this kind of thing. And it kind of has developed in that direction um, in some ways, and especially some of the founding fathers in America wrote about these kind of concepts and very noble, virtuous concepts and everything. But uh, people should realize that there was a lot of other different thought processes going on that weren't so um, virtuous and everything that really got things moving away from a vertical and towards more of a horizontal. And the really twisted thing is that communism is like the new vertical now because but it's sold as a horizontal because when you read the Communist Manifesto, and it's being sold to the very lowest of the low in terms of like class, it's being sold to the absolutely lowest on the totem pole in society, that it's for their rights. But the end result of it is a complete autocracy where the power is absolutely confined within uh, the hands of a very small group of people. So it's the absolute most twisted deception ever. It's beyond. So the end goal of that is to bring things back vertical again. So it's so twisted. But they sell it as, oh, it's because we're looking out for the workers, everybody down here. It's really twisted. Yeah.
Yeah, here they call it. The government has very special names for these things. They call it devolution. We're giving more power back to the cities. Um, People don't realize that when they're doing this, the government, it makes it's going to be more localized. I mean, we'll have to go less. We won't have to go as far. No more Jarrow marches. I'm bringing this up as a local point, and if anyone sees it from this place, there was a march uh, back in, oh geez, this was at the turn of the 20th century, and it was called the Jarrow March, and these workers went down from here up in the northeast of England down to London, and because they that's where they had to go. They had to go to Parliament, um, and all over this place called Jarrow is as soon as you get off the train, you see murals showcasing this, celebrating it. Look at these workers. Look what they did. Look at their shoes. They were worn paper thin, because of they had holes in their shoes, and people would go out and give them food along the way and support them. Of course, their march came to nothing, and it's always like the punchline at the end. Sorry, uh, back you go, peasants. Back to where you came. Back to whatever hellhole you came from. Goodbye now. Yes. Uh, but that's the thing, and they paraded that a lot around in these areas, telling people about their trials and tribulations. It's funny how all of this stuff, these murals and these historical points, were starting to be celebrated while the government had started talking about things like devolution, which is basically about giving more power to the heads of the local authorities, so they could basically turn their city into a small feudal system. Now that looks like we live in a more modern society. I mean, the clue's in the name, though. I mean, you should be very suspect about anything called. I mean, how much has our language been denigrated if we can't even recognize when the government is trying to sell us something called devolution, that it's wrong? I mean, not even the devil part, just de-evolution. Well, why is that even an agenda? How did that get past the vetting process unless there's some form of mockery going on here? So yes, so on the face of it, they're making things more democratic, and they're making it faster for your issues to be sorted out, and you can go to your local people and local heads of government, and air your grievances. You don't have to walk in your plimsolls with holes in them all the way down to the capital. You can do it here. But the fact is, when you could your when you change the whole system from departments which have to answer to other departments, which have to answer to even further departments, and then finally to one center at the top. When you cut that off, you cut off the paper trail. You cut off the nowadays you have an electronic trail, and it's the same thing at the hospitals. Right now in English hospitals, they have a problem with giving people appointments. A lot of people that I know, they try to get important appointments for surgeries or medicines, assessments for medicines, looking at if they have a disease, and like if they're going septic even. One of my friends has a problem at the minute, and he's got his he's showing signs of sepsis or early signs that something's going really bad, and his appointment's way off. It should be within the next day or two. It's like a fortnight. Uh, so there's an issue now where so if you have a problem with that, you there's things you can go to. You can talk to these people, the people who look after these lower departments, and you can say, "Hey, I'm not getting my appointment. These guys just keep canceling my appointment," and they will get you an appointment. They will get you an appointment quick, and they'll put the department, the hospital department that you went to get this appointment. They'll put them on notice. Um, the way that this works is that you taking that example there, they they don't want that process where you have oversight. Where they want it so you basically these cities have their own little kingdoms, and as Caleb was saying, the heads of these little kingdoms will be the nobility, which now they have enough numbers of. I imagine in the past they didn't have enough numbers to do it, and that's why it's taken so long for them to embed themselves properly with these democratic processes that the previous society has helped to
Sounds like a union.
expand to it.
Sounds like there's a unionization process that's happened, because that's exactly um what it sounds like, the same way that Greyhound is over here in the US. Like in the US we have Greyhound bus, right? And it's the bus that you can get anywhere in the country on. But they're a union, and um, all the bus drivers are part of the union, and there's nobody uh, to call. If the driver is uh, fucking up, they don't have any supervisors that you can talk to. The company can't, because the way that unions work is there's the union and the company, two separate entities, and the whole purpose of the union is to tell the company to fuck off, basically. Uh, you know, um, so when there's a problem, there's no one to get a remedy from, because basically they've unionized and they just tell everybody to fuck off because they're a union, and their whole modus operandi is just to tell everybody to fuck off. So that's what it sounds like. If they're letting each and every town unionize, then you can't call the higher up government to fix anything in your town, because their town is so unionized that they're just telling the larger government to fuck off. Yeah.
Yeah. So feudal systems. That's what a caliphate's about, and it can get pretty confusing when you talk about this stuff. It's like caliphates and feudal systems and vertical and horizontal. Honestly, during this article, I had to go back and really listen to what Sean Hross was saying to get this stuff, because I went from, okay, so Prince Charles wants a vertical rule, but then he wants a caliphate. I was getting mixed up between them, and it was getting it. But yeah, so I mean, you will have people who are watching this now. You will have to go to Sean Hross's work. And if you go to the interview that we did on my Substack, um, Pharaohs of the World, it's called. He will if you listen to that interview, but then go on to follow the links in the description to his channels and his work, he will explain it to you better and in length. Um, but yes, getting back to Fabian society and revolutions. I mean, I could look at the. I'll go back to the comments soon because we might get sidetracked again. One of the last things I ended up putting in last minute was this this Fabian society, the early Walter Crane art that the Fabian Society used for their covers, for oh, I can't remember what else they used it for. It was for their yearly reports and things like that. Um, they used angels. Um, they they used there was something about the use of the three angels as well. That there was something about it. It, it it's sort of I, I was like, why is this a Victorian thing? Why are they using angels? And then I looked it up, and one of the things that people don't get is that when people Sean Ross starts talking about the Swiss, it's like, really, Switzerland? You know, it, it, it's sometimes it's a bit hard to understand at first, but then you listen to him more, and you hear him talking about France, you hear him talking about Germany, you hear him talking about Italy and Spain, all these other places connected to the Templars, ancient Templar sites, commanderies, castles, the nobility of France, noble families of Germany, of Italy. He said, he says, this they're all tied into this. When he says the Swiss, it's not just the Swiss. He's talking about an enclave, you know, a- an enclave which has been around for a long time, and it's hard for people to wrap their heads around. I imagine to to understand that, why does the Swiss why in the Swiss Parliament you look at the stained glass window that's in the Swiss Parliament, and you see two angels with red wings holding up the coat of arms of Switzerland. There's something to that. There's a lot of Swiss villages and municipalities. You look into why angels are used on heraldry. It's um, it's to do with being holy. It's to do with religion. It's to do with ecclesiastical matters. It's to do. Bishops often had angels in their heraldry. I show that in my article on Starmer, that there was a Swiss nobleman who became a bishop, and he changed his heraldry to reflect his title. And I just found it interesting that the Fabian Society are very, very anti-religious, and so it made me think, well, why are they using these? Why are they using these angels in this art that looks like heraldic art as well? I mean, it's cover art, but it looks like heraldic art. And I got to thinking, there's something in this where, and then I thought about Starmer's birthday, and I feel like they were giving us hints even back then what they were up to, because if you've got angels holding up sachets with the slogans of the French Revolution on them, then that automatically associates them angels with with the French Revolution. Well, what happened? Well, as I said, bishops used prominent bishops used these used angels in their heraldry to reflect this. So it's like they the Fabian Society know that the French revolutions it was a revenge. I mean, they say as much in there's a quote that Michael Tessarian put in one of his articles. I can't remember where the quote's from, but the quote says something like in this French Freemasonry conference, this just started going off, started saying they wanted to get revenge for what the monarchy and the church did to the Templars, and then we see now Switzerland using angels to prop up their coats of arms, and you see the Fabian Society
Maybe
using that same heraldry.
maybe it's a sort of like a Luciferian angel concept of the ones that rebuild, and also maybe it's like a better to rule in hell than serve in heaven kind of idea that they're playing with. But that's weird that they would use angels when they're literally trying to wipe out religion and the French Revolution.
It it's a taunt, right? It's a taunt. The very Starmer having the birthday that he does, and him being the head of government, because his birth date lines up with the start of the September massacres, the slaughter of these bishops in the French Revolution. It's a taunt. It's a taunt to the royal family. It's a taunt to the religious institutions, but it's also um, it's a it's a taunt to us too. They're saying they have the religion. They have the religion of the future. Not only that, they're saying they could even be saying, look, we stole these angels and now they serve us. I mean, was it angels and demons or an integral part of magic rituals? Right? Is that right? Yeah. Um, I I try to research these things, but it's been a while since I properly delved into the whole ins and outs of magical rituals and just how angels play into it. So, um, but yeah, so there's occultism at play. There's occult mockery at play there. There's also uh, them telling us a lot about their their wish to continue the revenge to create their own French Revolution in this country. And as I show in the article, which was another last minute thing because I thought Sean Ross doesn't talk about the Fabian Society. So why do I feel the urge to talk about the Fabian Society? Well, because Starmer's talks at the Fabian Society, has talked in the Fabian Society. He wrote a pamphlet for them based on H.G. And the title was one similar to one of the titles of H.G. Wells's work. It's called The Long Road Ahead. I mean, he was playing on those references. Starmer, the guy with the September Massacre's birthday. I mean, he's like he's the standard bearer for their mission, right down to his cult, right down to his astrology. Um, but yes, also, I just simply I saw it as a reference to this is coming from Switzerland, and I also on that very same night, I found out that just before the Fabian Society was created, sorry, it was just after the Fabian Society was created, that Edward Bernstein, who was in exile from Germany, who had been from their king, the German, oh, I can't remember his name. This is why I need to brush up on my ordinary history. But what's his name now? Anyway, the is it the Kaiser? The Kaiser got there in the end. The Kaiser was putting pressure on the Swiss, supposedly to fur, fur, further um, to further exile this man away from Europe, away from the continent. So this so he went to London, but I look at it as the Swiss went to London. Sorry, the Swiss sent him to London and sent him on a mission. They sent him on a mission to say to the Fabian Society, look, um, we we can these guys can go ahead with their plans. We see that London is the right place for to kick off this whole return to sorry, kick off the whole uh, front of a horizontal rule and eventually switch it back to a vertical rule because everything they tried with communism was failing, and Bernstein was able to go to London in fact and see how robust the capitalist system in the Victorian times in Victorian London was, and how that that it was not good that communism was not going to take off in the West, and that they needed something different. And this is and shortly after Edward Bernstein arrived, I think it was 7 years after he arrived, the LSE, the London School of Economics, was formed, which was a school built for international students. 70% of their students, and it's always been this way. It was built to educate foreign nobility from all over the world. And the Swiss, they saw what was going on over there. Over there, there were more political exiles. That wasn't. I think Engels came from Switzerland to England, and obviously he had his mission. And when that wasn't working, and when Engels died, Bernstein was just like, okay, he's gone now. We can set things into motion. We can and obviously the Swiss have been. Uh, in my notes, it goes into just how many privileges the Swiss have at the London School of Economics. It's it's quite a prestige. It's one of the most prestigious schools in the country. Barring Oxford, it's put out more world leaders than anyone else. Um, it is the place to create politicians and political leaders, and also leaders in the corporate world, in the sciences, in the arts. Um, but yes, angels. Um, just that one thing. It told me a lot. How the Swiss almost use it like we are the holy blood, we are the holy grail. That's what these angels stand for. That's why they're holding the coat of arms. It's because we are gods, if you like. We are godlike. We are as close as you'll get to it. We are descendants from the Templars, from Jesus. We are the holy blood. um, yeah, I need to go to the toilet quickly. Do you want to continue? And I'll come back soon.
Yeah. So those are interesting things when you see angels on heraldry from the French Revolution that was supposedly against religion. And I'm gonna scroll up and read some comments here. Let's see. And give illegitimate lines of royals to take control of these new groups. Yeah, but they did it because they thought that they were just as legitimate as the vertical rule. You know, they didn't see the vertical as being more legitimate than they were because, after all, they were all related. They are acculturated to use the tools of power available to them, i.e., Order of the Garter. Well, they made that to um, because when they were getting rid of the old vertical rule, they basically stopped short of slaughtering them completely. And instead of slaughtering them completely and just like wiping out the royal family altogether, they created the Order of the Garter to say, all right, this is our meeting ground and this is where we can talk on equal terms so that it's not just you guys, the royal family anymore. You guys have to negotiate with us as equals from now on, as members of the Order of the Garter. Savile's birthday is October 31st. Yeah, and see when they so Savile is a nobility bloodline as well. So um you can see it didn't have anything to do with morals to say that we have
And
to get
also,
we
just
have to get
before,
rid of the vertical rule because it's immoral and we should have a more virtuous system. Uh, no, it's because they said we're also bloodline. We're every bit as bloodline as the king is, so why don't we get any power? So they created the brotherhoods and the fraternities, and then you have people like Savile, who's a member of the fraternity, and he can do whatever he wants, and the other members of the fraternity have to protect him, regardless of what they think about whether they like the guy or not. It's not a matter of, hey, I don't want to stand up for this dude because he's, you know, fucking corpses in the morgue at the hospital, and raping kids, It's doesn't matter whether you like it or not. If you're in this secret society, you have to protect your brothers of the secret society. That's why he was able to get away with everything. These secret blood sex magic rituals can include intentional deception. Hillary Clinton was conceived on the celebration of Hilario. That's interesting. Conceived or
when you're
born?
reading out comments, bro, read them out a little bit louder so people can. But other than that, no, it's great. Yeah, address them. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, people watching later won't see these comments. But yeah, I'm reading comments here. Russ Viking New York says horizontal groups include CFR, Council of Foreign Relations, or UN, WEF, World Economic Forum, the Jesuit popes. Wasn't this a bait and switch to hold their power? Um, and then the Jesuit popes he's talking about are like not the pope that we think of. They have their own pope, the Black Pope. I don't even know who the Black Pope is these days. I know it used to be Kolvenbach or whatever. Hans Kolvenbach. That was back in the day. Sure, it's somebody else now. The Brotherhood of Man, John Lennon, to push the idea we the people feel like we are a part of the global collection of groups. Yeah, so the Templars weren't all about John Lennon, Brotherhood of Man kind of idea. They had a different concept in mind. They're the Holy Blood, you know. Uh, local councils just brings more power over smaller numbers. Councils are for the elite, therefore it's an oxymoron. And yeah, because even if you're a member of a union, uh, which is supposedly looking out for you, if you're not on the board of the union, um, what good is it really going to do you? They're spending all your money that comes out of your paycheck. sure they consolidated their power uh, enough to tell the company to fuck off, so you're not getting ripped off by the company anymore, but now you're getting ripped off by the union. Same kind of way that it works. How responsive are the local leaders dealing with grooming gangs? Furthers your point about the hijack of democracy. That'd be a question for Nate.
Sorry, I was reading again. Could you say that again? Sorry, bro. Read that out again. So find it.
Yeah, he said, how responsive are the local leaders dealing with grooming gangs? Furthers your point about the hijack of democracy.
Well, it's funny because Lord Justice Bean, he was the guy in charge of. He's the guy in charge who was who was the judge of the case involving the migrant hotel, the main migrant hotel in Essex, and he ruled that they could stay there. And since then, we've had we've had uh, asy- uh, illegal migrants, asylum seekers, invading schools, just invading local schools, and the schools having to be shut down, and the police being called out. This is what this Lord Justice Bean, Judge Lord Justice Bean, has allowed to happen through his decision, and he was the head of the Fabian Society for a while. Sadiq Khan, he's also a prominent Fabian Society member. He's been just yesterday. There's an article just come out from the Express. It seems the Express have actually been doing their job and or reporting on how Sadiq Khan has been covering it up, how he hasn't been answering the calls of people who have been victims of these grooming gangs. He one of my first videos was actually on Sadiq Khan a long time ago. Looking at his crimes against the British people. And even back then, I was looking at the Fabian Society. Been looking at this for a long time, dipping in and out where I needed to gain more background, gain more insight. There are, as it's been so long since I've even looked at the other grooming gang, the main grooming gang cases, such as in Rotherham and Rochdale and Greater Manchester. But it looks as if these guys they have their fingers in all the in all the cases to do with the exploitation of these British girls with these foreign gangs who seem to be in cahoots with the Fabian Society. And funny enough, Jimmy Savile had a lot to do with members of the Fabian Society. Jason Horsley goes into this in his book, Vice of Kings, it's called. Jason Horsley, Vice of Kings. He grew up in a Fabian family. He has had first-hand experience. His brother killed himself. He was an artist. He was called Sebastian Horsley. My God, you want to have a look at some of this guy's art. I go into in my next set of articles where I do a lot more on the Fabian Society. I look into the Gnosticism of the Fabians, and wow, the Sebastian Horsley grew up in a Fabian family and inspired by Aleister. His art was inspired by Aleister Crowley. His way of life was inspired by Aleister Crowley. Let's say the denigrated image of Aleister Crowley, not the truth of the matter. Which who knows? You can speculate all day. There are various different opinions on who Aleister Crowley was and what he did. I'm not here to argue whether he's a good or bad man. I'm sure there's plenty of other people who would do that for me. But anyway, I just see it as a denigrated form of Aleister Crowley's work, Aleister Crowley's image, and he ran with it. We're talking skulls in cupboards. We're talking ghoulish self-portraits, the most ghoulish, twisted things you could imagine. But anyway, supposedly, Jason Horsley, who wrote The Vice of Kings, his family were well acquainted with Savile. And his brother might have even encountered him when he was younger as well. Like went to meet him at some kind of event. Came in contact with him. So who knows what happened to him? If anyone looks this guy, it was a very tragic thing that happened to Sebastian Horsley. I would actually, Jason Horsley is a great guy. He's a very well-spoken guy, as you can imagine, brought up in a wealthy family. But if you listen to his story, it's harrowing, and you can tell this guy's been through some shit, But getting back to it, yes. So Savile, as we know, is connected to the royal family as well. And it got me thinking, actually, and I have wrote about this, but for the past month or so, I've been concentrating mainly on getting this little excerpt out from the bigger part of the work. But it talks about how Savile is connected to Starmer. Starmer protected Savile, protected his connections, including the King of England right now, and Charles, who is the King of England right now. So if we're looking at any connection at all, besides from all the groups that Russ Viking mentioned and that you read out already, those organizations very much connected to the Fabian Society. A lot of those people who were in those organizations were schooled at the London School of Economics, which was set up as I suspect, by the Swiss, by who were cohorting with the Fabian Society at the time, who I imagine had distant ancestry in Switzerland. I have had a look. I had a small look at the ancestry of the Fabian Society. Of course, the mainstream view is that no, these guys don't have any ancestry to the Swiss, and whether that's true or not, as I've said, they have their people that they send out anyway to call the shots for them. The Swiss don't need to embed their people into the institutions here. All they need to do is to send the right guy with the right amount of what's that incentive, right? With the right amount of incentive. But if we're looking at anything concrete, you just look at the blackmail system. The blackmail system that I believe that Starmer was even warned of. They publicly humiliated him this year because his properties just started getting blown up, set on fire by Ukrainian fashion, young men, Ukrainian men who had aspirations to become famous fashion people. Of course, then these people didn't do the correct amount of vetting, because then you also find out later that these men are connected to Ukrainian politicians. One in particular who was a rival to Zelensky, who may have been blackmailing British politicians so he could be the next Zelensky and cut deal with them. Well, he ended up dead pretty much in the same week that these men got charged, these Red Boys. So, alleged Red Boys. So if we're looking at any system here, that connects the Fabian Society to the all of the Garter, I would certainly start a look at Savile and his cohorts in the Fabian Society, who have mastered a system of blackmail, who spend a lot of their time, according to Jason Horsley, learning the ways, sitting down with criminals, hanging out with criminals, making sure they get early releases from prison, in reformation programs, so they can learn everything, learn their trade from them, how they victimize people, how they get away with it, their mentality, that sense, that spirit of it. And I believe back in the early days, especially, they were hanging out with occultists as well, so they could learn how to hypnotize people. And that's how the common purpose came around. And then I mean, you have blackmail and you have common purpose. You don't need much else. I mean, if one fails, the other will work. The other will put them back in line. So, but that's my little comment on that. Let's have a look. Jim. Oh, go ahead, man. Go ahead. I'm going to read some of these comments and see if there's anything.
So, to give people an idea of what is Switzerland, why is this important? What Sean has brought up a number of times is that a people is basically a race, and a language makes a people, makes a nation, right? If they're of the same race or of the same language. But this isn't the case in Switzerland. There's 4 different people and 4 different languages in Switzerland. The north part is German-speaking Swiss. The west part is French-speaking Swiss. The southern part of Switzerland is Italian-speaking Swiss. And the east part is Romansh-speaking Swiss. And they're 4 different people that don't even get along with each other within their own borders. So what is it? If it's not a people or not a nation per se, what is it? Well, I have a quote that's going to maybe shed some light. It's on my website. It's on the article and blog called Witchcraft in the Middle Ages. And it's about a quarter of the way down the page, and I have the whole article organized into questions where I pose a question and then I sort of include the quotes from the book that answer the question or address the question. And all of the quotes are from a book by Jeffrey Burton Russell called Witchcraft in the Middle Ages. So I pose the question, where were the witches mainly found? In the countryside or in the city? All right. It's an interesting thing he addresses in the book because of the popular sort of notion of movies and things that it always shows them in the woods and all this kind of shit, right? Well, it says, it is true that an exceptional number of witch cases occurred in the Alps. Now, if we're talking Alps, we're talking Switzerland, all right? It is true that an exceptional number of witch cases occurred in the Alps during the 15th century, that's the 1400s. But the chief reason for that, is that for centuries, the mountains had been the refuge of the Waldensians, Dulcinists, and other heretics of the sort. So heretics were making their way over to Switzerland, right? Back in those days. For centuries, though, but we're talking about 1400s, but for centuries before that, multiple centuries. Well, if we're talking 1400, and Switzerland was only founded as a country in 1291, then we're talking about the days before Switzerland was even established as its own country, that there were heretical groups making their way over there. So obviously, um, there was a process happening before Switzerland became established in 1291 of basically the the church would call them heretics. You know, the church was the old vertical rule that we're talking about. So Switzerland was a place that heretics could go to and sort of gather amongst themselves. Says some of the most important witch trials took place long before the outbreak in the mountains, and in such unmountainous locations as Toulouse and Paris. Vertical rule, old world order, and the cities. Witchcraft first flourished in the wealthy lowlands, where heresy was strong, and spread with heresy into the mountains, not the reverse. So the heretics from the old world order would just flee to the mountains, whenever they got persecuted by the old world order. So that's how it all got congregated. They weren't people who necessarily were from the same race or even spoke the same language, but they knew if they were getting persecuted, they would head to the mountains, Switzerland, what later became Switzerland. Says the degree to which Alpine superstition influenced the witch belief has been exaggerated. So it wasn't that Switzerland itself was the origin of witchcraft. It was because uh, people from everywhere that were getting persecuted as witches were going to hide in the mountains in Switzerland. So Switzerland was just this collection ground of heretics that people were, yeah, heretics would show up from everywhere, you know. Um, the articulation of classical heretical witchcraft originated in the lowlands where heresy was strong and only then moved into more remote regions like the Alps. Some areas of Europe were much more susceptible to witchcraft than others. Spain, though it had a strong tradition of high magic, had little witchcraft in favor of Trevor Roper's view that the two are wholly unrelated. Portugal, southern Italy, Scandinavia, Ireland, and until the 14th century, England were also relatively untouched. Witchcraft was strongest in France, the Low Countries, the Rhineland, northern Italy, and the Alpine regions. With the exception of the Alps, these areas were the richest, most populous, most highly industrialized, and most intellectually advanced in Europe during the days of the Old World Order. So basically, if you're a reject of the Old World Order, you would just head to Switzerland. We're talking before Switzerland was founded as a country. So heretics, criminals, witches, they would just get kicked out of uh, places all over Europe and head to uh, Switzerland. Right? Witchcraft appeared in the Alps only after the witches and heretics took refuge from persecution in those mountain fastnesses. The geographical facts thus strongly suggest that Leah, Hansen, Murray, Trevor Roper, these are authors, and even to some extent Runeberg and Ginsberg, all of whom have emphasized the agrarian or mountainous nature of witchcraft, are in error on this point. This in turn gravely weakens the hypothesis witchcraft was fundamentally a fertility cult with roots in agriculture and the chase. To be sure, such mythical elements had always been present, and they were somewhat reinforced when witchcraft fled the centers of population for the Alps. But in the early Middle Ages, the days of the Old World Order, the elements of agricultural myth and witchcraft had already been subjected to the influence of Christianity, transmutation that accelerated from the 13th century, i.e., 1200s, onward. So we're talking about the days leading up to the establishment of Switzerland, and then afterwards. Witchcraft thrived best not in mountainous or agricultural areas, but wherever and whenever, often slightly after, suggesting a displacement from heresy to witchcraft, wherever heresy flourished. So basically, anybody the Old World Order didn't like, the rejects of the Old World Order. So basically, the New World Order is uh, the rejects of the Old World Order that fled to the mountains and established their own country. Because then what happened is that uh, they became mercenaries, and then they started talking amongst themselves about how, well, we're of noble blood too. Why are we rejects? Why do we have to hide out here in the mountains? But they became mercenaries, and they became crusaders. They joined the crusade, and they captured treasure and wealth in the Middle East, which they then brought back with them and used that wealth to establish their own country known as Switzerland in 1291.
So I was just writing down there, um, what Bernstein, Edward Bernstein came over from Switzerland. He spent some time with the Fabian Society, and he realized this is what the mainstream line is. He realized that communism wasn't going to work over here, and that London and England in general uh, was a hotbed of activity which could be used. It was fertile ground. And the way he put it was, they were going to use democratic processes instead of the brutal form of control, such as the communist regimes. And I noticed that his name is Bernstein, as in Bern, Bernstein. The capital of Switzerland is Bern, Bern. And it's almost like when he went over there, it was like, with this stone I lay my foundation, sort of thing. so, so we're looking at witchcraft. I mean, there's witchcraft in their names. I don't know whether it just lines up. It's just total coincidence, but great, fantastic coincidences, right? For this all to be just happenstance. But then you have Starmer and his birth date and what his name means, which comes from Stormer, which comes from storm trooper. Der Stürmer was a Nazi paper, by a man called Julian Streicher, I think. And in his name, you can see that there is a propensity to use er at the end to indicate a verb. And Streicher is very similar to Starmer. And Streicher means artist, I think it means, or it means it. It doesn't mean striker. I know that. I think it means like something like a painter or an artist. I think Sean Hross said. Miss Stormer, though, Starmer can have many connotations, but I mean, you had the Stürmer Abteilung, which means the stormtrooper division, You got Der Stürmer, the Nazi paper, which was the Stormer. Believe some websites still use that name for their own and have adopted it. I wonder what they think about the phrase Stormer. In relation to, would they align themselves with Starmer? I wonder. I don't think so. At least not on the face of it. But yes, so there's occultism in the places where you wouldn't expect it to be. Uh, um, let's see now. Well, where else was I going with this? All right. Yes, yes. I'm talking about he says here. Russ says in the comments, he was talking about how Switzerland aligns themselves with the Holy Roman Empire. Well, I mean, the Nazis did have the Roman salute, right? And Starmer's ancestors had names like Adolphus, which are Latinized versions of Adolf, which means wolf. They're Latinized versions again, going back to this Holy Roman Empire, and the fact that Starmer's ancestors had those names, I don't think it's by accident. I think his family were trying to remind them of where they come from, and even if those kids or their progeny weren't fully aware, it would remain in the records. People would see these signs. They would understand the lineage of these people just purely from those names. Um, it was very very much a moment of clarity for me when I started reading it like this. Um, so there was that. It was also mentioned about I do believe Russ commented in the live chat, and he mentioned the birth date of Savile was on Halloween. It's the 31st of October, but I don't know whether these things. I mean, how perfect can you get this system down where you're actually, yeah, I mean, you're looking out for people with these significant dates in their birthday to line up with these things, or is it, is it just does it just happen that way? And how does it happen that way? It's, there's something that's almost like a splinter in the mind, to quote the Matrix, something that just it keeps getting, I keep getting stuck on there. Um, but one more thing. Um, yes, the art of. Oh, you were stopping. You'd stop me before I wrote out the rest, and now I can't remember. But I will read out Russ's comment here. He says again, the Swiss are an outgrowth of the Holy Roman Empire. I'd argue the Swiss are a confederacy of ideologues or dark magicians, witches, warlocks, the same Atonists that came from pharaonic groups or the Gaionum. The witches were and are still used by most governments, pointing to witches over here to keep eyes where the majority of dark magicians are in plain sight, except undetected. The Western powers wanted their witches, instead of competing factions, using their magic against them. The Western powers wanted their witches, instead of competing factions, using their magic against them. What do you think about that, kid?
Pretty much that's kind of how it goes. It's hard to discern what the true story is by the accounts that are given, because when you read those old accounts, I mean, you can tell that they're fucking insane. Like, they're obviously persecuting people for stupid reasons. But I think it's true what he's saying. The the real witches were getting let off the hook, basically. Like, it seems to be largely that innocent people were persecuted and burned, and the ones that really were like you could really accurately call evil witches were in the nobleman's bedchamber for the most part, in the castle. They were sipping on wine in the castle. They didn't really have to worry about getting burned. Um, but yeah, you do see some things. Uh, these groups that were declared as heretics, they basically had to leave town, and they would head up to the Alps. And so the Alps, or what we today know as Switzerland, was just receiving uh, people declared as heretics who were coming up there and relocating to the Alps, and eventually it became established as Switzerland. So that's what Switzerland is made out of, basically heretics. And the Templars are just uh, the unionization of the rejects of the old world order. But I gotta go use the bathroom real quick. Do you want to keep catching up on the questions in the chat? Awesome.
Okay. So before, uh, I think we're all caught up with the questions actually. Funny enough. Do 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 do. Oh wait, no, yeah, that's right. Russ asked how are the councils? I didn't really answer that question very well. How are the councils handling the grooming gangs? Well, they're doing their best to cover it up and to understate the issue, to downplay it. From what I gathered from my MP, one of her responses was, "Oh, it's only the one migrant hotel," and I'm like, "Okay, well, that's what you say. I didn't say that. I said, okay, I accept what you say, but I don't know that for sure. You could just be telling me that." I thought, uh, and although at the time it would be very helpful to say that, so I told her, uh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether it's 1 or 10. These things need to be shut down. There's enough going on with migration in this country without having more added to it and having it go unchecked, where we have situations like we do down in Essex, where it's getting out of hand, and they're they're now terrorizing schools. Great job there, Judge Justice Bean. And you did a great job forming a dialogue with the people that you serve there. I know your game. But yes, and this is why I don't hate on migrants, on asylum seekers. I don't hate on them. That is pointless. That doesn't get you anywhere. You direct your anger, your righteous anger towards the right people, towards the people who have let the floodgates open. So yes, they're not doing very well, and not forgetting, in my fair city, we've also had our grooming gang problem, which many will be familiar with. Those who are affiliated with me will know what I'm talking about. So yes, it is a problem that isn't really being tackled, and all of the inquiries over the years have just been there to hush up, downplay, make it seem as if they're doing something about this kind of thing, but they're not really. Um, and there's reasons for that. You were talking about making sure that their black magicians are powerful enough over here to operate and to draw attention. I mean, obviously, the Fabian Society have drawn a lot of attention to themselves, which is why, even though I am doing the same thing, but by drawing my attention to them, I'm also making an effort to go, but what about over here? Well, we're not looking way back. Let's just go back to the beginning and see what happened in the beginning, just for these forces to come about, for these black magicians to become so powerful, to form a system of blackmail that just stretches across the entire UK and possibly across the world now. We're talking about, you know, the the art of that misdirection, almost like a double trick, a double spell. Because I mean, let's go to a classic example. Okay, um, Sean Hross talks about the KKK. Talks about how it's a Swiss invention. They invented it. The Ku Klux Klan. It comes from words meaning cow and clock. Cow clock. The cow clock clan and the cowbell clan. Actually, Glock. Sorry, it actually means cowbell clan. But it's funny how the Swiss are obsessed with clocks, and the name for bell is Glock. It sounds very like clock. And what do you see at the Glockenspiel in Leicester Square in London? You see clocks and bells. Clocks and bells. What are they doing to us? If they invented, and this is all over their flag actually, the colors, the symbols that are used, similar to the ones found on the Habsburg flag. Yeah, they're telling you who created. It's this continental, or as Sean would call it, the Swiss nobility, who uh, were trying to do the same thing to the world, but through fear, I guess, or through counterbalance, through countermeasures, probably looking forward and saying, well, they're gonna spot this. What do we do? It's like, we give them a boogeyman. We give them the Ku Klux Klan, and we set these guys up as big racists. They want to turn all black people into slaves. They want to literally put a bell around their necks, which is what Ku Kluxing someone is you put a bell around their neck like they're a cow. Right there, you're you're putting a bell around your cattle so that you know where they are at all times, and they can they're your livestock. You got to look after them, right? Well, look at us now. We've all been Ku Kluxed. We've all been we've all had bells put around our necks. I mean, not literal ones, metaphorical ones. We've got mobile phones. We've got digital IDs, which the first ones started to come out yesterday in this country. Um, for all intents and purposes, they have cowbelled us. They have clucked us. Did you catch most of that, Caleb? It was a
Just
mind blowing.
when you saw me sit back down, I caught all of that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so that's another instance where they've managed to con people into thinking that the Ku Klux Klan. You don't ever want to. I mean, how many parodies have you seen of the Ku Klux Klan in movies, and how many times they've become a joke now, you know? Um, uh, uh, and I think that's on purpose as well, because when you start to talk about this, if you've turned the boogeyman into a joke and you say, "Oh, look, the Swiss are trying to do the same," then people can laugh. Oh, what, like the Ku Klux Klan? What, they're trying to do that to the whole world? But they have done that to the whole world. You may laugh, but you'd be laughing to the grave. Um, but yeah, you can go ahead and say something on that if you want, bro.
Yeah, I'm reading a book right now that's supposed to get into that. Um, as far as in the United States with the KKK and how they originated in Indiana, and it's gonna get into a lot of other stuff. you know, there's a connection with Jim Jones as well, but I haven't gotten too far into it yet. But yeah, pretty dark stuff.
Yeah. I mean, just going through some of trying to see if there's anything else in this article I want to talk about. If you're going back to angels, I mean, the Swiss even uh, they have this thing called it's a medal issued by the Swiss cantons on the birth of Princess Claude of France. I don't know if I've pronounced that right. That sounds like a boy's name, Princess Claude. Uh, Someone's going to correct me on that. Um, and it was engraved by Hans Jacob Stampfler, and the image shows two angels carrying the Swiss coat of arms. So people who might say, well, it's a bit of a stretch. I mean, France has a more of a thing for angels in their heraldry. Germany has a bit of a thing as well. Again, it's mainly to do with um, church, higher ups in the church and the clergy, that especially noble clergy, clergy who just happen to come from noble families. But as we've said, you know, these noble families, these royal families, they've intermingled quite a bit. Their blood is intermingled. Their origins have intermingled. They stem from rich and powerful families going all the way back. And yeah, they probably wrestled the Swiss, but I reckon I know who'd win that arm. I know who'd win that arm wrestling match. Um, so it is interesting though that yeah, when you start to look up the heraldry, that the first ones that come up quite prominent is France and Germany. And I'm not disputing that they have a lot more of that if you look into it, but actually, in I don't think France has a section in the Wikipedia on angel heraldry, whereas Switzerland does, and Germany doesn't have one either, but Switzerland does, and it's they are a notable example, especially considering they had uh, actually England is a country where they've had angels holding up the royal heraldry, the royal family's heraldry, but not the national coat of arms, which seems to be a strictly a Swiss thing. Um, but yeah, I'm just sort of scanning through my article. Is it coming up to about 2 hours? Do you think this is good for now, and we'll round it up?
Yeah, I like to
Mm,
keep them around just under 2 hours or so. I think it's a good
yeah,
yeah.
I can feel myself running out of steam, but I'm hoping with
Did we catch up
these
with all
three,
of the
we can.
comments?
I think we did. There
Okay.
might be one of. No, that's it. Yeah, I think we. If you go have a look quick, and we'll see if I'll have a quick glance over here to see if there's anything else I wanted to pick up on. Da, 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 da.
Current Black Pope, Father Arturo Sosa.
But yeah, it is interesting though. I mean, I knew I had a feeling that hunting would be a pretty big thing in Switzerland, but I didn't know that they almost made the ibex extinct through it. It got so bad over there that they had to put a stamp on it like pretty early to make sure that they didn't wipe out one of their famous mountain goats. Mhm. Because it's so. And now it's interesting that Starmer is carrying on that lineage. You know, he became a manhunter when he went after Assange in the two sets of riots that we've had. It, Back in 2011 we had a big riot kick off in London, which kicked off riots all over Britain, and he was a main guy in the Crown's prosecution service who helped to prosecute a lot. You went after guys um, in it who were involved in the riots, or who were perceived as involved in the riots. And the same thing happened just after his election, almost like a send off, almost like a celebration, almost like an occult ritual, like kicking this whole thing off. All right, we're back. Labour's back in power. Time to show people who's boss, and we're going to stop throwing people in jail for even showing their faces around these riots. And we're going to we're going to put everyone else on hold, waiting for their crimes to go into jail, and we're going to imprison them. We're going to stuff them. We're just going to stuff as many people in there as possible. As many of you people who think you're going to take your country back, who think you're going to uplift your society, people who think you're going to fix the identity crisis, this major identity crisis this country has. Well, I'm here to tell you, I'm going to put a stop to all that. And that's kind of the way his election kicked off. And so there are these signs that he still has that hunter gene, that karma that he hasn't faced up to yet. I don't know how aware of all this he really is, Storm. That's the thing. This is the thing I go into in my articles. I actually go into Alice Miller. I even go into a bit in Nathaniel Brandon to try and look at his proclivities, let's say, his bedfellows. So look out for that, because I really try, and from the limited information they give us on him, I really sort of try to do a deep delve and see who this creature is. I'll start to trickle it out soon. I'm getting there. But yes, certainly I really look at his whole karma, his shadow. I call it. That's it. Yeah. I call it Starmer's shadow. But of course, you can't go into Starmer's shadow without looking at our own shadow, and that's also what it's about too. It's about facing up to the fact that we have allowed this guy to come into power. We have allowed the Fabian Society to do what they have done to this country, and let's not get away from that. And that's also, if you think this is all about just hating on them or they, no, this is about facing up to what we have done to allow these cretins to destroy this country, destroy its reputation, destroy its trust with its own amongst the host population, widespread, and to start from the beginning, to say, look, here's the problem. We need to fix it. It's up to us. It's not, we can rant and rave about these people all day, but we need to actually. I need to actually, without getting to the whole, talking for everybody in the country. I need, and it starts with me, and that's why I keep going back to my MP and having phone calls with her, which is very nerve-wracking for me. For the first time, it was actually just speaking to my local politician. I have this thing with important people. I get really tense. I have to calm myself down. So it's a big thing. And but once I started doing it, it was like, fuck me, I'm actually doing something, man. I'm getting to know the person who's actually embedded in the system, and airing my grievances out, and also telling her things that she doesn't even know. I don't know if she's going to go away and research this stuff. She still hasn't got back in contact with me. As I said, with the phone calls I had before with her, she got back to me in a timely manner. With this one, where I brought up the Fabian Society, she apparently didn't want to get back to me on that one. So I don't know if she's went off doing her own research and
So
I can't touch this radioactive shit.
You're trying the Jim Cairns strategy of talking to all the people who are supposed to be doing something.
Yeah.
It didn't work out well for him.
Honestly, it's UK Column. Shout out, UK Column. If you guys aren't watching UK Column, You need to be, because they've got the finger on the pulse. It starts with you. The only way you're going to make yourself feel better, and where you stop becoming a raving, ranting lunatic to someone who's actually doing something, is you get in contact with the MP. You start doing things for yourself. You start complaining to the people who are supposed to be doing something, and even if you gets you nowhere at all, and it doesn't make a blind bit of difference. At least you could say it to yourself that you've done something. I can look my children in the eyes and said, I went to these people who were supposed to be looking after us, and if it comes to it in the end that I go and they didn't, and so I had to do it myself, then so be it. But and what form that's going to take in the future, I have no idea. But these are exciting times. These are the most challenging of times as well. But yeah, I mean, there are things I could go on to talk about from here. Obviously, I went on that little branch there talking about Shadow Starmer, but the shadow of Starmer. But you can't look at Starmer's shadow without looking at our own, because we projected it onto him. He is an emanation. Part of him is an emanation of us, especially the part we see on TV. I'm not sure I want to see the part which isn't on TV, to be honest with you, but you know, my imagination has taken me there already, and it's scary enough. All right, guys. Yeah, I think this is a good place to end it here. Again, thank you for all of the new subscriptions and support, and the questions in the chat. They were fantastic. Russ, keep coming back to our. You're welcome anytime. Stephanie, if you read this one, got it. You got to come back, and your questions were great as well last week. We'll be here next. We'll be here next week, and yeah, I can't wait. I love this, and let's keep this going. And when you sub it helps immensely to keep it going. Check out Caleb's website, Van Helsing Library. Check out his articles, especially the ones on Commons Beaumont, and for today, Sean Hross. Have a great evening, everyone. See you later, Caleb. Take care, bro. All right. See you later.